Good evening. Now I'd like to bring the regular evening meeting of the Township of Langley Council to order. And the first item on the agenda is the adoption and receipt of the agenda items. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox moves, and seconder, Councillor Davis. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Next item is the adoption of the minutes, the regular evening council meeting of May 8th, and the public hearing meeting of May 8th. Councillor Fox and Councillor Arneson are there seconds. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. There are no presentations. We move on to delegations. The first delegation is Marilyn Henderson. And if Marilyn Henderson is here, please come forward. Thank you. Well, you're up. You're up. And when you get, just provide your name and what neighborhood you live in for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes, and you'll see flashing lights to tell you when your time is getting close. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Forbes, council members.
I'll have to get close to it.
Okay, my name is Marilyn Henderson. I live at 3683 206 A Street, Brookswood, V3A 6V7. I'm a new resident of 1 year in this wonderful Langley municipality. Settling in, I've started reading the local news. It was with shock and awe that I read the Langley Times story, April 28th, Council concerned Brookswood aquifers at risk, discussing the two companies that have applied to Metro Vancouver for permits to discharge airborne contaminants that could pollute the potable water supply in Brookswood Fern Ridge. 55% of our drinking water comes from this aquifer. 85,000 people depend on the aquifer for their water. What will Township do if the water is no longer drinkable? How do they plan to keep water flowing to 100,000 residents? These two industrial facilities exist in neighboring South Surrey's Campbell Heights Business Park. Complications, yes, Langley Council, have you let Metro Vancouver know that the protection of our aquifers and water is a concern? And also there are two municipalities involved, Surrey and Langley, who need to create a cohesiveness within each municipality by working on problems together as one becomes aware of them. One would hope that they would work together, both municipalities, towards a mutually beneficial solution. We would hope that Surrey will be respectful of Langley's water concerns and address any negative impacts on Langley as Surrey continues to move forward with their business park. The Campbell Heights Local Area Plan Review, approved by Surrey City Council on December 11, 2000, contains Campbell Heights environmental policies. This section's full of pictures and policy describing Campbell Heights' concern for protection of water and other environmentally sensitive areas, and this seems a stark contrast today as we consider the two applicants in front of Metro Vancouver. Plus, what of the cumulative effects of a series of similar proposals from companies hoping to move into Campbell Heights and discharge pollutants? Langley must take a proactive stance. The reading material on the emissions is frightening and actually quite scary and can't be ignored. EBCO and Weir have applied to Metro Vancouver Air Quality Control to emit from their Campbell Heights location. EBCO Metal Finishing Limited Partner proposes to discharge from a hot dip zinc galvanizing operation 3.71 tons per year of assorted air contaminants, including ammonia, zinc, ammonium chloride, chlorine, sulfuric acid, nickel, and particulate matter for 24 hours per day for 7 days a week for a period of 15 years. Where Canada Inc. proposes to discharge from an industrial rubber rebuilding plant 2.49 tons per year of assorted contaminants, including nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, volatile organic compounds, particulate matter, carbon monoxide, hydrogen chloride, and hazardous air pollutants for 24 hours a day, 5 days a week for a period of 14 years. What are the effects on human health and the environment? What are the actual emission rates, as those provided are only estimates, they're not the actuals? Are any contaminants directly dumped into sewers or septic holding systems? Who monitors the water purity over time? We're not experts. Langley residents deserve clear, precise answers to questions about dirty emissions. Within the April 28 Langley Times article, I also read and would like to thank Township Council for passing the motion to correspond with the Fraser Health local drinking water officers regarding the potential negative effects that EBCO and Weir emissions may have on the Brookswood aquifer. I and 4 others felt compelled to support Council's motion. We want to help raise awareness about dirty emissions and their unknown impact on Langley aquifers, wells, and above-ground water systems. We started a petition named Protect Our Water. 4 of us canvassed throughout May for 3 weeks, mainly in Brookswood Fern Ridge area. The result, within a 3-week canvassing period, 1,144 signatures on paper and 147 signees online. Feedback from canvassing. We discovered the residents of Brookswood, Fern Ridge, and Langley are extremely concerned about caustic nature of airborne contaminants. Residents feel significantly impacted and want information and are counting on Council to take this situation very seriously. We want a proper environmental review that explains the real consequences and impact of these industrial emissions on our water sources and air quality before the EBCO and Weir applications are given approval by Metro Vancouver. Having looked at the zoning of Surrey Campbell Heights Business Park, we only understand 2 zones there, IB1 and IB2, both for light impact industry use. This zoning allows warehousing, distribution centers, high-tech companies, retail, wholesale, a number of centers, services, restaurants. We question the fact that both EBCO and Weir have constructed their facilities in Campbell Heights Business Park before seeking approval to discharge air contaminants, which seem to be a cart before the horse scenario. We are convinced that EBCO and Weir's proposed air emission practices we are not convinced that EBCO Weir's proposed air emission practices comply with current Campbell Heights Business Park zoning. We would like Council to investigate that.
Just your time, your 5 minutes is up. Are you just about to wrap up?
Yeah, I'm right on the end. Okay. Our Protect Our Water petition garnered concerns from a wide variety of Langley residents who feel significantly impacted: farmers, organic farmers, local business people, mature professionals, retirees, community park users, the elderly, and many young families with children. While canvassing Langley residents, we were often thanked for bringing this petition to Council. All who signed the petition want zero emission protection. We said we would deliver that sentiment to Council this evening, and I hope we've accomplished that.
Thank you. I do have a comment or a question from Council, and thank you very much.
Okay.
Just to bring you up to date, I appreciate you mentioning the letter to Fraser Health, the Ministry of Health, or I don't know, we went to Environment or Health?
It was a Fraser Health.
Fraser Health, and also we have been in contact with Metro Vancouver, but however, when it's in the City of Surrey, as far as their zoning and land use, yes, that's the City of Surrey. So I trust you've also gone to see the City of Surrey, or you're planning to, through their council?
Well, I just started.
Okay,
this is the first work that I've done on this issue.
Yeah, because land use would be under the City of Surrey. So just a suggestion.
Yeah, they're on the aquifer there, though,
okay,
which is the Brookswood aquifer.
Okay, so Councillor Fox and then Councillor Arneson.
Okay,
Councillor
so I
Fox.
do have 2 copies of the petition, and I'm just not sure who to give these to.
Our clerk. Oh.
The clerk,
Yes.
and one more to somebody?
Just to the clerk. Yeah, thank you. And Council, there's 2 councillors who would like to ask you some questions. If you could go back to the podium, thank you, if you wish. Councillor Fox.
Thank you for coming. So the mayor has kind of alluded to my question. Have you gone to the City of Surrey?
Not yet. Myself, I have not.
This is their zoning and their industrial park. And you mentioned and went into elaborate description of how you feel that they haven't lived up to the existing zoning. We can't change that zoning at this table. That's not our purview. We are you have to understand that.
Okay. It's not changing the zoning. It's understanding how these companies got in there, because they are affecting the Langley area and the water systems in Langley.
That's a Surrey issue, and you need to take that to Surrey. You mentioned 100,000 residents. Can you go back to that comment? Because I don't.
This was just in literature that I had. And that's another thing. I was going to ask that we're a little behind. We were still petitioning on Saturday, and then putting this together. So we need to bring that in to Wendy next week. I've already talked to her about it. It's all of our research paper. Basically, what was that? 100,000 residents. How to keep water flowing if all the drinkable water, the aquifers, are gone.
So where did you get the 100,000 from?
It would have been in one of my articles that I have at home. I'm sorry, I don't have it with me tonight.
So are you talking on the wider spectrum, or are you talking strictly in Langley?
Just Langley, I would think, yeah, because I was
Because
dealing
Langley's
with
only
Langley.
about 110,000 people, and the majority of the urban areas are on Metro
Well,
Vancouver water.
yeah, well,
no,
that's-
Metro Vancouver water.
Oh, okay, so I may have not understood how to say that properly, but that 100,000 people are depending on the aquifer water.
So Brookswood has a population roughly of 25,000 plus or minus.
Right.
So I'm just trying to wrap my head around the accuracy of that number and where that number derivative comes from.
My understanding is that the Brookswood residents get a mix of aquifer water with Coquitlam watershed water.
Correct.
So that would be
But there's only 25,000 Township of Langley residents
right.
living
Okay.
in there.
Well, if I misspoke on that,
Okay.
I'm sorry for that. But it would have been something that I would have read.
Okay, and I'd really strongly suggest if you want to make a case, then go to the city of Surrey and make your presentation to them and your plea. We have, as Mayor Froese said, written through motions of council, Fraser Health and Metro Vancouver. So basically, your two requests there, we've already
Dealt with.
well, we're trying to
Dealing
find answers
with.
too.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, to get the answers, yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Arneson.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for coming. I did actually wanted to refer to what you were suggesting in terms of the cooperation aspect. This was something that I brought forward about our livability accord that we have with those neighboring communities. Personally, I don't see it as this is their jurisdiction and they get to do exactly what they want, because my understanding in signing such an agreement was you're going to collaborate and try and figure out ways, in particular, to look into the environment and the aquifer to make sure before you make these decisions, which are really multi-jurisdictional decisions, that we have policies in place to know that we are protecting our natural resources. Could you just remind me, actually, of the number of signatures that you got in a
The signatures are on paper. Are 1,144. And the online just got started probably a week or so ago, just over. We've only been doing this for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We jumped in here, and so there's 147 online right now.
Further to Councillor Fox's comments, I would strongly encourage you to send a copy of your petition to the City of Surrey. And, additionally, because I know that they've been already petitioned, but in terms of public interest. The other thing I'd like to point out is I was very disappointed, I have to say, that the correspondence that we sent actually to Fraser Health was redirected towards a completely different ministry, the Minister of Forests, Lands and Natural Resources. And apparently Fraser Health chose to make a distinction in their mind between point and non-point pollution. And they were suggesting that they thought, I guess, that these emissions were not coming from a point emission standard. That's not my understanding, but, I guess they're entitled to their bureaucratic opinion. However, I also think that they should be receiving a copy of your petition further to our earlier correspondence, just to underline our concern. So
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Excuse me. So the next delegation is Dr. Marie Mcfadden. Dr. Mcfadden, thank you. And the same rules. If you just provide your name and neighborhood where you live, and you'll have 5 minutes to present.
Thank you very much.
As soon as you're set up, I'll start and ready to go. I'll start the timer.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marie Mcfadden. I'm a long-term servant of, our public servant of Langley, having practiced eye surgery across the street for 25 years. I now live in South Surrey, but my heart is here.
Looked at my eyes.
Thank you, sir. I hope they're still working.
Yeah. My new glasses, they are.
Thank you. I'm here to augment the presentation here, and as a quick note to Councillor Fox, that number was derived from Township of Langley data that's on the website. I had initially found 84,000 residences plus 5,000 wells, private wells, served by aquifer water, and I was later corrected by an update of that particular document, which says 95,000 residences are supplied by township water. Now, the system is complicated to the extent that it is augmented by GVRD water, and but that's the facts coming from Township of Langley documentation. I will be happy to forward that to you for your information. Better grab my mouse. Sorry. I'd like to first thank the township for identifying a massive and hidden threat to greater than 100,000 souls whose water comes from the Langley aquifers. This is a really serious problem, or potential problem. And I thank you for the courage to confront the interjurisdictional confusion, we'll call it, which has allowed this situation to occur. Uh-oh, playing with the mouse.
F5 on your control board. At the top, F5.
Thank you. Is that like the ONOFF switch?
Yeah, that gives you 100,000 souls.
Thank you. And I'd like to just explain the documentation which I've placed in front of you. There are two documents which have been submitted to GVRD, one of which has got red writing on it. This is from an environmental scientist named Klaus Orr, and this basically destroys the air case for the EBCO application as being completely dangerous. The second document is one by Dr. Mark Chu, who's a local orthopedic surgeon, and his letter, which has got nice things on the back of it, basically shows, and this shocked me to no end, is that a very small increment in zinc. Gosh, my mouth, I'm getting nervous here. In zinc in the air will completely contaminate the surrounding soil to a point of making it impossible to grow crops. In other words, destroying the agricultural land around these point of source polluting points, and also in people's gardens throughout Brookswood. How I can make this. Okay, so the next, and this slide here basically shows, again derived from Township of Langley geosource material, shows the Brookswood aquifer, shows the 2 point sources of pollution, along with the data that Marilyn kindly presented, and the Brookswood number 10 well. Now, I don't pretend to understand how the water system works, but I think you have some really clever people in the Township of Langley that know this stuff. But this slide here is really the key to the whole problem. So what are we going to do to gone 2 slides. And I had in my talk that we should, gosh, we need something to drink, water. Oh, thank you very much. I had in my mind the Ghostbusters thing. Who are we going to call to figure this out? Because there's just a whole bunch of people around. This slide everybody knows, and of course the Township of Langley is well, and everybody knows where we are. The pollution sources are here, and who we're going to rely upon to guard our environment. And the answer is probably not Metro Vancouver. When I looked into it, there are 9 branches, nine departments of GVRD, water services being one, and the air services, what I'm calling air GVRD, is actually the legal and legislative services. The water services for GVRD are very strictly zero emission. The watersheds are protected from development and closed to public access. Unlike our situation, the GVRD water, which is GV Water Department, is a guardian for 2.5 million people. On the other hand, the Legal and Legislative Services Department, which claims to have the sole and only authority to grant an air quality permit, actually, I believe, is not qualified to be making a judgment about our health. They're actually ignoring one of their second tenant, which is that any substance in the air which injures property or any life form is an air contaminant. They claim not to care about soil or water, so they're therefore not our environmental guardians. Presumably, they believe smoking will not harm us, and unfortunately, they've gone to apparently endorse a new environmental protection unit, which I'm going to call flying cows, cars, and trucks per hour. And here's a graphic of that. Air GVRD claims that we can put 13,000 pounds a year of toxic emissions into the air and turn it into X units per hour of flying cows, cars, and trucks. I'm surprised they didn't go to doing it in minutes, because that would make their numbers smaller.
Time is pretty
Time
much
is
up.
up?
We just wrap it up. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Here's the the second last slide. Here, this is again from Township of Langley material showing the two sources of pollution. The fact that gets thrown up into the air, turned into flying cows, cars, and trucks, falls on the land, goes into the soil, and then into the aquifer. And the fact that the soil will be destroyed and the aquifer very likely destroyed is just frightening. So I'm asking the Township of Langley to choose wisely, thinking about an old movie that we saw. And the easy choice is to consider Langley's aquifers as zero, we are asking, can't talk, marbles in the mouth. Consider Langley's aquifers as zero emission zones, exactly like GVWD. Second route is a scientific route to engage the TOL in-house expertise, FHA, and provincial environmental people. Let's use facts instead of to neutralize the conflict of confusion influences. And please, let's not choose poorly, which is self-destruction if we destroy our aquifer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do have a question from Councillor Arneson. Please, this isn't a show. We're here for a council meeting, and we want to engage with our delegation. So if we could please keep the cheering and clapping to a minimum. Thanks. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for coming and your presentation. I did have a question actually with respect to zero emission, because I actually read the minutes of, I believe it was the City of Surrey. They have an environmental committee themselves, a sustainable committee. They actually asked for the same thing themselves. So I'm wondering whether or not you're aware of if this is something that could actually happen with respect to these type of industries that they're putting in that neighborhood.
Well, I have two things to say about that, and I haven't done all my homework. I know that there was an environmental review prior to one of the building permits being issued, and at that review, the person who was building the plant said that there was no emissions, no zinc, and it was only steam coming out. Turns out there's 8,000 pounds of something coming out the stack. So there's something funny there. And sorry, there was a second thing about that you asked. I got carried away.
Oh, well, it was just the reference to the zero emission.
Oh, and zero emission. I believe there are somewhere in some places in Europe, and actually the Australian standards, the ANZAC, Australian New Zealand pollution standards, are very close to zero emissions. So it is possible to do it. The current technology, which the promoters are calling state-of-the-art, does not appear to be state-of-the-art.
Okay, yeah, I guess in just a comment, and just looking at this, because I know the township has spent a lot of time and a lot of resources doing a lot of due diligence to study our aquifers, and so to me this is troubling that we are just on the precipice on the other side of where these activities are taking place, and that, you know, we lack maybe as many jurisdictional options as we would like, but I do believe that this matter is being more seriously considered at other levels of government, including Metro, because, you know, I'm sure this is something that historically has maybe happened, that they've carved off an area of jurisdiction for air quality that doesn't consider these other components, and it doesn't consider the cumulative effect. And so I think that our scientific understanding based on all of this information is that we need to move well beyond that and look at the environment as a whole to make sure that we're not damaging this resource.
There are a large number of contaminated site regulations in the provincial legislation which are applicable, and I'm sorry I'm not an expert. I'm trying to do my homework, and I better get out of here before I get that big big hook.
There's no trap door that opens and swallows you up, so don't worry.
Sounds like you've done an awful lot of work on
Yeah.
that. Thank you. And I can just say that all members of council are concerned about our water and our quality and air quality. One thing that as a region we've done is because air moves, we rely on Metro Vancouver to manage that and to regulate it. So as a township, as a municipality, we're doing what we can to ensure that they're aware of our concerns. And yet we don't have any jurisdiction to regulate or control at this point. And just because of, as you mentioned, who do you call? And it's provincial and it's Metro Vancouver. But we certainly are concerned, and we do appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, and I know we're going to all choose wisely.
Yeah, I do have another comment from Councillor Long, or a question. Councillor Long.
Well, yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Thanks for your presentation and the one prior. I think it's important that you get this information into the hands of Rob, or whatever his name is, Rob Roy, yeah, because he's going to be making a huge amount of the decision will rest upon his research and I should say your research, but his assessment of your research, let's put it that way. So even though petitions are very good in a democratic process, it's not so much the numbers or the amount of people that are upset. Unfortunately, it's the facts that are going to make the difference here. So if you can get your research into him, that would be helpful to everybody, as well as we've said a couple of times tonight, go to Surrey. But I think that information should get in as quick as possible to Metro.
Thank you. Actually, two of these letters have gone to Metro, but my concern regarding that line of scientific thought was that I'm not sure that Mr. Rob at the meeting said that PCBs were only toxic or only cause thinning of shells of blue herons. I'm not sure that he's the person to be making the judgment. I think it's a multidisciplinary thing that has to happen with a lot of experts, a number of which are in-house. But thank you.
Right. But the more information you can get them, the better,
Yes.
for sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, the next delegation is Ms. Diane Kask. Please come.
Diane Kask, 2658028B Avenue in Aldergrove. So tonight I'm going to talk about rats. Okay. Good evening, Honourable Mayor and councillors. My request tonight is to have Langley Township do their part in controlling rats by passing bylaws and policies that exterminate and stop their spread. Also, to have a public education campaign to encourage the use of rat-proof bird feeders and other rat deterrents. I have sent letters, emails, and phoned the township with requests for leadership from council and township staff on this issue, to only be referred to Fraser Health. When I contacted Fraser Health, they told me they only supply information on their website on ways to deter rats, and then if I wanted anything further, I was to contact my municipality. Councils in other lower mainland municipalities have shown the initiative to pass bylaws and policies, but Langley has not. Delta, Maple Ridge, and other municipalities with farmland and residential areas have passed bylaws. When a building is to be demolished, a permit is issued. One of the stipulations to having the permit approved is to have a certified pest control company inspect the building and exterminate any rats that are found. This procedure does not cost municipality money, and the developer only a few $100s, but saves the surrounding neighbors the problems of rats that have lost their home. In Langley, a large house that had been condemned was torn down, and neighbors saw rats running from it into the surrounding neighborhood. If Langley had a similar requirement, the neighborhood would not have had to deal with this influx of rats. When the Birching housing development began, trees were cut down and the ground excavated. The rats lost their home and moved into the surrounding neighborhood in great numbers. People that had not seen rats on their property in the 20 years of living there had them in their sheds and saw rats in the yards day and night. The property had belonged to the township, and the township had not controlled the rats as was their responsibility, so when the property was sold, the developers caused this problem for surrounding neighbors. Rats are not just a dirty inconvenience. They spread disease and destroy property, such as electric wire harnesses and vehicles. As stated in the letter of February 19th to Council from Burton Creek Enhancement Society, a park in Tsawwassen was shut down for cleaning when leptospirosis was found. The disease is spread by the urine of rats. There is an expensive inoculation available for dogs, but wildlife can be affected as well, and inoculating them is a bit of a problem. Children and dogs play in our parks and streams. We need to have policies to protect them. There also needs to be more public education. In Delta, if rats are reported, flyers are sent out to the area encouraging people to check their yard for areas that may attract rats. If the problem continues, the area is checked for the sources of the problem, and the property owner or owners are encouraged to fix the problem areas and use pest exterminators. Due to the lax attitude of council, continually sloughing off the problem is growing. The Township of Langley needs to take the initiative now to pass some basic bylaws and policies, or the cost of the township and its citizens will only increase. ICBC is really mad. We need some leadership from council and staff to protect our property and waterways. Please consider this request. In the package, I gave you just a copy from Delta of when a building is demolished there. They have the pest control companies need to check out the building before it's demolished.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sure if you push your button. It's not working? It's not lighting up. Okay, hang on. Let's see what's going on. Ms. Kask, I think Council Arneson wants something's gone wrong with my system here. Okay, you're on anyway. Let's see if I get that.
Okay, here I am.
It's just not working. The mics aren't, I don't know what's going on here. No, just your next, when you push next speaker, it's not working. Oh, we'll check with, just give us a minute. We'll check with.
Okay.
Here. Yeah.
Oh, there's a rat in the place.
Spread, and across the street from me there's a person that has caught 52 rats in the course of a month in traps. And so that tells me there is a real problem. And I know, like, these other people, and I have friends like in Brookswood as well, and they're telling me that they have done everything they can thinking to get rid of rats, and through the years they have seemed to for a while, but they're back again. And they haven't come in their house, they're in the yard, but just the same. And I personally, I have 3 years ago, I have fruit trees, so 3 years ago I had my neighbor said they saw a rat on my shed, and so I thought, okay, got to do something about this. They jumped from the fence on top of my shed. So the next day I called the pest control, and I've had pest control in my yard since then. I have the pest control company has done the rat proofing of my shed, so there's no way the rats can get in it. But they say that I have killed hundreds of rats. They're not in my house, thank goodness, and I don't see them. But for the amount of food, they come every month and put the food in, the bait in there, and they said that I have killed hundreds of rats from that. And so it's a real problem. The people all around, like, know people in different parts of Langley, different parts of Lower Mainland, and I think the only way that we're going to make a dent is that if there is a widespread campaign and the township takes some sweeping measures, because other people have seen them, like close to Tim Hortons, and they've seen them like 7-Eleven, I think it was, and different people have reported different places they've seen them. So there needs to be a real push to do something. That's what my feeling is.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Whitmarsh. Don't go away. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, thank you. You provided for us this form that comes from Municipality of Delta, and this is a form that's used for when they are planning to take down or demolish a house. Is that what this is for?
Yes, it's part of their little package, the things you have to do before you demolish a house, yes.
Okay.
Or building.
So I'm wondering, you've done some research into what are some, I mean, this is for taking houses down, but there's obviously lots of other issues around why we have rats besides the taking down of a home.
Yes.
So what are some other examples of bylaws that you've read about or seen that other communities have that you think would be a good bylaw as an example to bring into Langley that we don't currently have?
I think before the ground, as the ground is turned up, like a fear of I would have is that I know Brookswood Fern Ridge is thinking about doing this new community plan, and so I know that there are rats like in the ravines and in that area because my friends have told me, and I would think that there needs to be some kind of a plan in place to talk to pest control companies in a way of exterminating some of those rats that are in that area before anything happens, like before development happens, because they're just going to be trying to move into people's homes is what they're going to try to do if they have no place else to live.
Right. So, and as far as you know, Langley doesn't have any bylaws around pest control or rat control.
I have contacted Langley Township and staff, and the only thing that I have gotten from them is go to Fraser Health. And Fraser Health says, go back to municipality. That's as far as I have gotten.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks. All right. Okay, so now move on to, there are no reports, no bylaws for first and second. We have bylaws for first, second, and third reading. The first one is G1. It's a bylaw notice enforcement bylaw amendment for streamside protection and enhancement, bylaw 5257. Councillor Fox moves it. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Sparrow. Discussion on G1. Councillor Fox.
Well, if I've read this particular bylaw, which I did closely, I think we're fast approaching a fairly significant increment in this particular issue of streamside protection and enhancement. And I think that this is a constructive way of dealing with people who violate the policies. I think the stepping up and having fines, $500 is recommended. I think $500 isn't recommended. $500 is the amount for any infractions when development activities take place and there's violations. Up till now, we've dealt with voluntary compliance, but this is more effective and stronger, and I really support this. I think we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Yes, well, I feel the same way, although I'm not necessarily sure with the way things are going that it's aggressive enough, although I understand that it's an incremental approach that we're taking. So going from volunteerism to trying to put some teeth in it, I think is very helpful. I did have a question through your worship to staff. One of the things that I've discovered actually is that in other areas, and I'm not sure if we've analyzed it in the township, that oftentimes when we have an area that's covered by a restrictive covenant or an area that cannot be environmentally encroached, that over time, what happens without any oversight is that this gets ignored and people start building things on it, like gazebos and their gardens. I'm sort of wondering if staff had given any consideration to, once there is an infraction, to ensuring that the area is actually fenced off for its future protection.
Steffi?
Yes, Your Worship, that's a requirement of the bylaw.
Okay, so that just happens. Okay, because personally I'd be happier with a larger fine, but what's that?
It's the maximum we can give.
I know.
Per day fine, so it can get fairly high, fairly fast, so it's
Okay, well, to justify my position, what I would say is that there are things that are actually worth a lot of money that people can take out, and $1,000 is not much of a punishment for doing that. And so I have to look at the proportionality of what it is that we're saying. So it sounds like a lot of money, and if you multiply it by 30 days, but the thing that you're doing might create a situation where you're $100,000 to the good. So I don't really know that that's that much of an improvement if that's what you're concerned about is the bottom line. However, it is a step in the right direction, so I will be supporting it.
Thank you. I have a question for maybe Mr. Back, and a legal question. So when a bylaw fine is administered and then non-compliant, there's still non-compliance, and our bylaw officers reattend and serve them with more bylaw fines, isn't there another option where the offender can be charged and taken to court, or is it and then seek greater remedy? Whether I'm just wondering what else there is, because I don't think this is the only thing that can be done.
You're correct, Your Worship. This is the ticketing option. So if after a protracted period of time there was no change in the behavior, we could go to court to seek a court order to prohibit the behavior that, if that was not followed, would lead to a contempt of court application that could ultimately, theoretically, lead to something like 30 days in jail, but that's exceptionally rare.
Yeah, so there is more. Just sort of, I want to make sure that everyone understands that this is just one piece of the bylaw. And in my world that I came from in policing, if you have a law with no enforcement, you really don't have much of a law. So this certainly is a good first step, having a fine administered. And reading through the report, it looks like a lot of the problems and complaints our staff are able to deal with the offender and get resolution, and that's always a first step. So that would continue, and that fining hasn't really been necessary, but it's good to have that in our toolbox. So certainly support this. So with that, I'll call the question. I'm going to cancel the vote because I have to put Councillor Richter as absent. Councillor Richter. Okay. I'll call the question again. Thank you. And that carries unanimously. And move on to bylaws for consideration at third reading. This is H1, rezoning and community plan amendment application number 100134 and development permit application 100833, bylaw 5274, 5275. This is Hudson and Singer Homes Limited. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Long. Any discussion on H1? Councillor Qualley.
Thank you. Further to the information received at the public hearing, I'd like to add a condition to the permit.
So if you move an amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to move an amendment for the addition of a condition. The condition being that the CAC contribution to cover the full cost of paving of the Willoughby Hall parking lot that was generously offered by the proponents during the public hearing.
Is there a seconder to the amendment? Councillor Arneson seconds it. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the amendment. That carries unanimously. And now we go back to the main motion as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the main motion as amended. And that carries with Councillor Arneson and Councillor Davis opposed. Okay, so now we move on to bylaws for final adoption. I-1 is a highway closing and dedication removal, bylaw number 5182. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Davis moves it. Councillor Long seconds it. Discussion on I-1. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Through you to staff, I'm just wondering, we may have discussed this before, but I looked at this again, and I was wondering what analysis do we do to consider whether or not there might be future opportunities to use these currently unutilized roadway portions before we divest ourselves of these properties?
Mr. Seffi or Mr. Backen? Mr. Seffi?
Well, Your Worship, we have a number of plans that tell us what our future needs are, and in this case, we have a transportation plan, master transportation plan that has been adopted by council, approved by council, that provides guidance to staff in terms of what the future road needs are.
Most specifically, I just put down utility uses.
Similarly, Your Worship, we have a master sewage plan, we have stormwater management plans, we have integrated stormwater management plans, we have a water management plan. Those plans do provide us with information about future needs.
Okay, so it's redundant. Thank you.
Councillor Long?
Yeah, if I'm out of order, you'll let me know. But this is on the corner of Fraser Highway there, and there's going to be some construction and retooling of that corner to allow for some construction of some homes or duplexes. So I think we're okay there, and that's one of the reasons we're doing this. And I just wanted to see if there's any chance that sidewalk can be looked at along that street too. But it's probably not at this bylaw, but I thought I'd mention it because there is a need of a sidewalk on 268th, and there is construction occurring on 268th as a result of this closure. I'll just put that as a comment out, I guess.
Okay, thank you. All right, I see no further discussion, so I'll call the question on I-1. And that carries unanimously. Move on to I-2, and that's proposed soil policy and bylaw number 5120. Can I have a motion? Councillor Fox, and seconder. Councillor Qualley, any discussion on I-2? Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Through you again to staff, I do have a couple of questions. So my first question when I read this arose from the fact that I believe I recall last year that there was a bit of a pilot project that might be anticipated with Metro dealing with soil deposit issues. So I'm wondering if this was in play with respect to these changes.
Mr. Seffi?
Your Worship, I cannot recall a regional initiative that would deal with soil deposit applications.
Maybe not soil deposit applications per se, but probably around the issue of the movement of soils and resulting in invasive species, perhaps.
Again, Your Worship, memory fails me, but having said that, this is a bylaw that was given its initial 3 readings by council a couple of years ago, and it required provincial approval, and we have been waiting for that, and finally that approval has been granted, so it's ready for council to adopt it. It's a Made in Langley initiative. It's a Made in Langley bylaw and policy that expands and improves previous regulatory scheme that we had in terms of the regulations.
Okay, thank you. Now, it doesn't say anything specifically about gravel Is that because that's under the Mining Act? Is there some other legislation that covers that?
Your Worship, there are definitions in the bylaw and the policy that talk about soil, and I believe gravel is actually included as part of the definition. I'm looking at Mr. Welfing. That's correct, yeah. So it is included.
So gravel removal is a permitted
Yes,
use?
You're correct in that there are provincial requirements pursuant to various acts, including the Mining Act. However, our bylaw does cover that as well, subject to not being in conflict with, or anything that may be happening, not being in conflict with provincial legislation.
Okay, and perhaps you can just kindly refresh my memory about how many bylaw enforcement officers we currently have to oversee this?
Your Worship, our bylaw officers currently share the entire workload, so we don't have a specific bylaw officer who looks after one particular issue as opposed to another issue. And including the manager, we currently have five bylaw enforcement officers and one manager.
Thank you.
Councillor Fox?
Well, I have to say this is a long time coming, and I think we're finally reaching some conclusion to this issue, which has seemed to be percolating for a long number of years. Anyway, I thank staff for that, because I think getting the approval from the ministry has been another stretch, but this finally deals with some teeth in terms of soil bylaws and soil removal and so on and so forth. A couple of questions. Under item application for permit 12E, include a volume fee calculated at $1 per cubic meter. My question is, through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Sefi, is that enough? Are we taking enough? $1 per cubic meter is, in the big scheme of things, not a lot of money, but will that be enough to do the enforcement and have a contingency for any necessary cleanup and whatever the case may be?
Thank you, Your Worship. The answer is we hope so. And to provide additional comments to council information, this is a 100% increase from what it used to be, Your Worship. Prior to this bylaw, the fee was 50 cents per cubic meter, so it's now doubled. And I guess we will have to monitor and see how it goes for the next few years. And if need be, we'll seek council's endorsement to amend again.
Secondary to that, is that relatively equal to other jurisdictions, other municipal jurisdictions?
Relatively, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. I also wanted to 14C respond to Councillor Arneson. The Metro Vancouver pilot project was tracking where soil came from and where it was going to in Metro Vancouver, because they wanted to find out how this movement was going in terms of sort of where it was being accepted and so on and so forth. So now in our own bylaw under 14C, we will be doing our own tracking. It sounds like the location of the property the soil is to be removed from and where it's to go to is now more closely tracked, which I think is a great thing to do. Under item 16, when an application's being deemed as abandoned, so within 12 months of the date the request is made, that's when it's determined to be abandoned. Maybe through you to Mr. Sefi again, how do we, if a site is abandoned and it's a mess, how do we get the work done? What will happen after that 12 months? Do we try to get voluntary compliance? Do we fine them? Or do we go in and finish the work off ourselves at their expense?
Your Worship, typically these do not have, the municipality does not have an interest in the works being done, other than whether the status that the works may have been left with have a negative impact on the surrounding areas or not. And for those things, we typically have a security amount, a bonding that will allow us to mitigate and address those things.
And have we increased the bonding fee with this? I can't remember what the old and what the new is.
No increases, Your Worship, in terms of the bonding. So it's basically an estimate that staff put together based on, again, the circumstances and the needs and the scope of the project.
Okay, and just reading through this, I think pretty much consistently I see the two words, the engineer. The engineer certainly has a large responsibility on this, and I think that reliance on the engineer is great, and hopefully we don't run into any engineers that can't live up to the expectation, because it's pretty diligent in this particular case. So hopefully this is sound.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on I-2. And it carries unanimously. And move on to the Mayor and Council report. First of all, I'd like to welcome the scouts that are here. I've seen you sitting there, so you're here to observe Council. Yeah, well, welcome here. It's nice to see you. Nice to see you all here. Thank you. Endurance badge. Endurance, yeah, it's the endurance badge, is it? Excellent. Good to see you. Well, welcome everyone, and just report on the activities of Mayor and Council. Tuesday, June 9th, I was invited to attend an official tree planting at the Solomon Islands Consulate that is located in the Township of Langley. And I'd like to thank Consul General Ashwant K. Devadi for the invitation and the tea. And so this is a brand new consulate that they've chosen to locate in the Township of Langley. And it's a beautiful place. On Wednesday, May 10th, was the first day of the Lower Mainland Local Government Association Conference held at Harrison Hot Springs. Congratulations to Councillor Qualley for being re-elected to the LMLGA board. The conference, congratulations, Councillor Qualley. The conference continued this year on its theme of big conversations, which included a wide variety of topics ranging from responsible conduct and a new Canadian's perspective on BC cities to running cities like a business. On Saturday, May 13th, was the annual Denim and Diamonds Gala hosted by the Langley Memorial Hospital Foundation. There was a huge turnout with 366 tickets sold, and a record $516,400 was raised. Just a great outpouring of support from our community. On Wednesday, May 17th, I was invited to tour Innovative Fitness located in Walnut Grove. Adam Sippel is the owner and is very passionate about providing new ways to get healthy. They offer a variety of creative fitness workouts, nutrition, and training for everyone. A great place, and it was interesting to tour it, although he didn't make me work, so that was good. On Thursday, May 18th, was the annual Upcycling Design Challenge Awards reception at Willowbrook Shopping Centre. The creations from local artists were amazing, and this has turned into a great annual event. The winner of Best in Show this year was Natasha van der Zwaan, and you can see the eagle that she is behind her that she made from tin cans, and it's just an amazing work of art. On Friday, May 19th, the Langley Fine Arts School hosted a mural unveiling celebrations for its Mosaic mural, a project initiated by a small group of LFAS students in photography and the butterfly effect. The large-scale mosaic is a panoramic image of the Blau McClellan Forest made up of thousands of portraits of students and staff from the school. Langley Fine Arts School has a close connection to this area, as the students participated in gathering to educate the community about the Blau McClellan Forest. And you can see the picture just above my head on the screen, and those little squares are photos of all the students and teachers in the school, and it's a forest of faces. It's really interesting. Mm-hmm. The Fort Langley Beer and Food Festival was held on Saturday, May 20th, with 1,800 tickets sold. This was the inaugural event, and it was a huge success, and the weather was fantastic. It was a hot day, and lots of good food, and certainly a lot of support from the community in providing different breweries and wines. So thank you. And I think Councillor Qualley you were doing
we had a booth there.
Nachos with some meat on top, pulled pork. It's delicious. Thank you. Yeah. On Saturday.
Good beer drinking day.
That's right. It was a hot day. On Saturday, May 20th, was the grand opening of the Nature's Compounding Pharmacy in Fort Langley, and I was pleased to help celebrate by cutting the ribbon and the cake. And it's great to see a new business come into Fort Langley. On Monday, May 22nd, was the annual May Day celebration in Fort Langley, starting with a pancake breakfast, and then the Queen's Tea, and finishing with a parade. Another great community celebration. And there you see the scarecrow in the parade. On Thursday, May 25th, was the official opening of the new Canada 150 Amphitheatre next to the Langley Event Centre in Willoughby Community Park. thank you to both our members of Parliament, John Eldag and Mark Warwa, for attending, and for the Federal Canada 150 infrastructure grant of $130,000 that helped make this new showground possible. And it was a great event, a beautiful evening, and there's going to be concerts on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. all through July and August, and different groups are going to be there, and it's a free event, so bring your picnic basket and your blanket and just come out and enjoy a really good time. On Friday, May 26th, was the official launch of Cascadia Windows and Doors, passive house windows located in Gloucester Industrial Estates. Cascadia has invented the world's very first passive house certified fiberglass windows. Passive house is a voluntary standard for energy efficiency in building, which reduces ecological footprints. And these windows with fiberglass can now be put in place of aluminum, and it's a better heat transfer. So for large high-rises, they had to use aluminum because of the strength and the structural strength of it, and now they can use fiberglass. So this is the first in the world, and it's in Langley. On Friday evening, May 26th, we hosted a joint dinner with guests from Latin America who were here touring the Township of Langley through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. The Township's General Manager of Engineering and Community Development, Raman Sefi, is very involved with the FCM's Sustainable and Inclusive Communities in Latin America program, has been working with Colombia and other countries on developing long-term strategies around water. And we're discussing water here. We heard some of the major concerns that they have about water in some of the areas in Colombia. The world's largest open pit coal mine, and they use up all the water, and the people that are living next to it are desperately in need of water. So I know we have issues here, but boy, you hear some of those other countries, and a lot of issues. Here's a photograph. This is a salt mine, so this is the indigenous people have been mining salt for generations, and so the government allows them to mine the salt and make an income from it. So this is just a photograph of some of the work that they can do there.
What's he doing?
I'm not too sure, but he's mining salt. They're digging it out of the lake bottom. Yeah, it does.
I think it's a scoop.
It's a salt scoop.
It's a scoop.
We'll send you down there. We'll send you, Councillor Fox. I'm going to send you to Columbia to work in the salt mine, and then you can come back and report. On Friday evening, May 26th, we hosted a joint dinner. Oh, sorry, I did that already. On Saturday, May 27th, was the first annual Kim's Angels fundraiser and gala at the Glasshouse Estate Winery in South Langley. And all proceeds from this fundraiser are going to help families in need. So thank you very much, Kim Snow and Kim's Angels. They do make a difference. Upcoming events as the Environmental Heroes Award on June 10th at the Fort Langley National Historic Site. And many graduations from our high schools are occurring over the next few weeks. And congratulations to all of the 2017 grads. And on June 1st at the Doubleday Arboretum as part of Seniors Week, we are having a walk with the mayor. So at 10 a.m., come on out. And I know some members of council are off to FCM, so they won't be there, but I'll certainly be there and be happy to have a nice tour of that beautiful park that we have at the Doubleday Arboretum. And so I'll turn it over to, I think there may be some, if there's any other, Councillor Arneson was with Walking for Bright Futures, and see if there's any other slides there, some of the activities. And Councillor Whitmarsh, what was that one?
Yeah, this was a great event. Myself and Councillor Arneson attended, and it was the healthcare literacy graduation. And so this is a special program put on for newcomers to Canada, largely from Iran, Iraq, and Syria. And so they graduate through a program on how to access our medical system, how to get prescriptions filled, make a doctor's appointment, some of the basic things that we might take for granted here, but they come as newcomers to our country, and those are new things to them. So this was a great event, and the picture here with the flags is all of the children of the graduates. So those aren't the graduates themselves; those are the children of graduates. But it was a pretty special time to be there, and it's put on by the medical community here in Langley, so it's pretty special.
Thank you. And okay, I know, Councillor Qualley.
Thanks. I know you mentioned it, but I just wanted to actually publicly acknowledge the folks at the Trading Post. Brewing for their successful beer and food festival in Fort Langley. The festival wasn't just about drinking beer, it was really about celebrating local and celebrating the quality of food and beverage that's being produced here in our region. And that was super exciting. And I haven't heard what the final numbers were, but I know that they were very pleased with the success of the event. And a lot of the money from that event will be used for scholarships in the brewing program at Kwantlen University. So Trading Post is a relatively new business in the community. I mean, they're family from the community that have been making lots of contributions in other ways for a very long time in Langley. But, owners of a new business like that, to step up and create such a successful community event in collaboration with the Fort Historic site. And they've also launched from Langley a beer that is a collaboration with the historic site that celebrates Canada 150. So I think they're the only brewery in the country right now that is brewing a beer for the federal government in celebration of Canada's 150th. So I just wanted to recognize the importance of the small businesses in our community and the contributions they make. And, they put this festival on because they wanted to celebrate what was going on here. And they did really an amazing job. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Great job. Thank you. Anything else from council? Okay.
I got
anything else from Metro?
No, I have my.
Okay, yeah, push it. Yeah, kind of.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I was going to comment, Your Worship, on your upcycling event that you went to, and there was some terrific items that I saw as well, quilts and so forth. But I wanted to bring to council's attention, you may have heard this before, but there's a movement to repurpose faded street banners. They can be laundered and made into tote bags. And I noticed when I drove by the event center that they're probably due for a replacement because they're still all there, but they're pretty faded. So I'm going to email the link right now to staff. Maybe we can be repurposing any old street banners into purses.
And then when those tote bags are end of their life, then we repurpose them into banners.
Yes, you could do exactly that. Yeah. Small, tiny banners, but yeah.
All tiny banners. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So now we'll move on to the next item would be items brought forward for public information from special closed meetings. That's all there for your reading pleasure. And then on to other business. And Council, let me just clear the queue here. Council Arneson, you have two motions here. So M1, turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So for the first one, I'm just going to read the last paragraph. And just scroll down here. Therefore, be it resolved, the Township of Langley request all BC municipalities, the FCM, UBCM, and the LMLGA adopt resolutions requesting that a defined percentage of funds arising from the property transfer tax be attributed to a specific affordable housing and homelessness reserve fund in order to address these issues proportionately facing local governments throughout the province of BC.
Is there a seconder, Councillor Davis? Thank you. Any discussion?
Can I speak to it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to point out I've made a minor correction. It was my bad, having to do with the wording in paragraph 4. It doesn't really change the meaning, but it should actually say tax base and in order to make more sense. So I just want to give a bit of context because I, along with other council members, went to the Metro Council of Council meetings last month where we had yet another vigorous discussion about homelessness. And my takeaway from that is, in addition to these other documents I'm just going to hold up that were very helpfully provided by our representative, is also Metro itself, having to do with an analysis of the property transfer tax. And that started me on a path of research and looking into what efforts we have made. Metro made quite a good case for, I consider, repatriating some of these monies back to the Metro region. But I took that a step further and I did some research. And what I realized, and is written in my notice of motion, that 10 years ago, the District of Saanich had actually asked for a similar remedy. So they were looking into having these funds being administered by UBCM for homelessness and affordable housing. So now, 10 years hence, I find we're not only in a similar situation, but more of a crisis. So we constantly consider collectively the fact that we have the challenge of homelessness, social issues, but we are not a level of government that is currently funded nor mandated to take care of that problem. But these are people in our community. And so the reasoning is that having access to this rather predictable, at least these days, amount of funds would actually provide us with some certainty and a pot of money that we could work with towards creating initiatives in our community for affordable housing and homelessness. The other idea is that because the federal government has now created a housing strategy, that this would allow us to have some opportunities for project partnering. So if we had identified funding and also opportunities, we could put that together working with the federal government for those classic shovel-ready capabilities. So I'm hoping that we would consider putting this forward. It may be the case that other local governments would like to be supportive of this or face some wordsmithing. To me, that would be perfectly acceptable if we wanted to do that or if anybody else wanted to do it. But basically, the gist is that I think that it would be an appropriate use of these funds that don't come from our tax base in that sense. I understand money is, all comes from people. It's true. But the inflation, I'm going to call it, of our recent real estate has created some money, and I would prefer myself to have it put to a specific use in our own communities for our own needs.
Thank you. I have a question for staff. For this to go to all municipalities, is there a way, do you have to send a letter to each municipality by this motion, or is there a way to send it to UBCM and that they will distribute it? So how will this be managed?
Your Worship, it could be sent simply to UBCM, but the motion does make reference to all municipalities, FCM and UBCM, so perhaps...
So if the mover, if there's no objection by council, would just refer that request that the UBCM distribute this to all municipalities, it would say, because they have a better, save us a lot of time, they have a system that works. Is that acceptable to the mover? And if there's no opposition to council, then we'll consider that an amendment. Okay. Okay, and so discussion, Councillor Qualley.
Thanks. I appreciate the intent of this. At the last LMLGA meeting, prior to going into our annual meeting, where all of the municipalities submit their resolutions, I think there was 3 requests to divert PTT money. And so there's a lot of requests also going into UBCM. So certainly adding this to the pile is a good initiative, but there is a growing pile of requests for access to the PTT money because it seems to be the golden cow at the moment. So I don't oppose it, but I'm certainly not going to hold my breath that we'll make it to the top of the pile. There's a lot of other pieces. So I just wanted to let you know that the request has been made by several other municipalities already.
Thank you. Councillor Long?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I would suggest probably you'd send it to your MLAs and the leaders of these parties, whichever ones we have at this particular moment. And that might be, quite effective to do. As has been said, UBCM has a bunch of policy on this, but it wouldn't hurt to send a copy of a letter to the province.
Mr. McAdoo, do you need this amendment or directions should be amendment to the motion?
If the mover is happy with it, we can simply accept it as a friendly amendment.
And I might just add that the FCM probably wouldn't deal with it because the FCM would want to deal with multi jurisdictions across the Canada, so that it would be specific to BC's tax, I think, right?
It's a UBCM
Yep. This is a provincial tax, so I think what Mr. Long is.
So FCM wouldn't be. So instead of FCM, I would take the FCM out.
Strike FCM? Okay. So strike FCM, and then we'll add in the provincial leaders of the provincial parties. Okay? And that's acceptable to council. Okay. Any other discussion? So I'll call the question on M1. Carries unanimously. And Councillor Arneson, you're back on board.
I don't know if I should read this or not. Okay, I'll just read the last paragraph. Therefore, be resolved, staff provide a report regarding opportunities to proactively protect the park infrastructure. I'm just going to insert the Derrick Doubleday Park. I'm talking about an enhanced security, which analysis should include best management practices measures to potentially include a live-in caregiver either in a standalone residence or as part of the new interpretive center infrastructure.
Seconder? Seconder to the motion? Councillor Davis? Any discussion? Councillor, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason I brought this forward, actually, I was somewhat alarmed to see that there had actually been some vandalism at our beautiful park. And I know that we make every effort to make sure that that doesn't happen, but it's a park that we are adding infrastructure to. So we actually have some, I referred to the interpretive center, but also age-friendly exercise equipment and some beautiful art infrastructure. And so one of the primary considerations for vandalism is to ensure that you catch it at the earliest possible stage. And so it sends a message to the community that you don't tolerate this kind of activity, and it also minimizes property damage. So the idea was that the Township of Langley currently has some caretakers in other facilities that are otherwise inaccessible or potentially vulnerable. And just the conditions of the park are such that it's not really in an urban setting, and it has opportunities that lead to the potential for further defacement and vandalism. So this was just an attempt to try and be proactive and look into opportunities, not necessarily to identify one in particular, but to consider what might be cost-effective things to do that we can make sure that I refer to them as appropriate and cost-effective measures to prevent some costly repairs in the future. So that was my intention in bringing this forward.
Thank you. Councillor Fox?
Well, and thank you very much, Councillor Arneson. The only problem I have with this is we have a Derrick Doubleday Society, and they have been very, very, very instrumental in the design, in the ongoing commitment to looking after this particular facility. And I think we would be remiss if we just went in there and overtly decided to redesign something that, for example, the interpretive center, we've given $250,000, Mr. Backen, through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Backen, $250,000, and the Rotary Club's giving $250,000. If we were to put that doesn't include the residents, and it's a log structure, so it's not really at this point in time malleable. And to put a standalone residence might be a good idea. They sure might better like airplanes. But again, where would we put it, and how would we do that? So I think what I would prefer to see is this either referred or some sort of consultation take place with the Derrick Doubleday Arboretum Society. I know that they've spent thousands of hours, those people, and actually things like the berm, that's their idea, not ours, and they wanted that berm there for specific reasons. So I'd like to make a referral to they take this concept or idea or thought process to them just for their input, ideas, reaction, whatever the case may be. So I'd like to make a referral to the Derrick Doubleday Arboretum Society.
Councillor Fox moves the referral and seconded by Councillor Qualley. Just any discussion on the referral? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the referral. There we go. And that carries unanimously. Is there any other business?
Termination. Nope.
Yeah, I pressed that button. Councillor Davis.
Maybe could we send the delegation that came to council tonight, Diane Cass, could we send that to staff to look at Delta Maple Ridge maybe, and come back with some
if you make the motion just
Oh,
to
can
refer the delegation staff to look at other municipalities in the region.
Yes,
That
could I-
way, we're not just looking at two.
Sure, okay. Could I do that, please?
Sure, yeah. And
Move
so
that.
seconder, Councilor Long seconds. Any discussion on the referral, staff? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. Is there any other business?
Second.
Councilor Fox moves termination. Councilor Davis seconds it. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll take a few-minute break while we switch over to the public hearing. And I go get the scouts some pins. Bring it back.